look, I like Final Fantasy, but every single one of them has stuff in it I don't like, things I would change, big flaws. So let's get into each one, and I'll give you my solution for solving each of these problems. We're going to start at the beginning, Final Fantasy 1, and like, I can't really fault these old Final Fantasies too much, but I have to pick something, right? And the flaw in the first one is it's just a skeleton. It's so bare bones. It's the structure of a great Final Fantasy, but there's obviously just no soul. Kind of the solution for that is a time machine, I guess, because I mean, like, Final Fantasy IV is like Final Fantasy 1, the sequel. Final Fantasy IV showed that names matter and characters can have pasts, they can have flaws and regrets and redemptions. And that's what gives the world of Final Fantasy IV its soul. And like I said, I can't fault Final Fantasy 1 too much because they were just trying something and it happened to hit and they could iterate on it in future. But for now, the game is as bare bones as it gets. Final Fantasy II. Final Fantasy II had the weirdest leveling system ever. You don't really level in a traditional sense. It's more like your actions in a fight, in a battle. You have to take hits to raise your HP or cast spells on yourself to level magic within a battle. There's no like you get 10 experience points and you level up. It's not that simple. It's fascinating in theory. And I feel like there is a world where if this was fine-tuned, it could really, really work. But it isn't the world that we live in. I mean, the only way that you could fix this is to get rid of it. Just have some traditional leveling systems. I have a new entry for Final Fantasy III because, well, I thought of something that I hate even more than the thing I put before, which I'm not even going to talk about. It's the end game. It's the Crystal Tower section, the boss run, the boss gauntlet, boss rush, whatever you want to call it. No save points at the end of the game. And if you die, you could potentially lose a lot of hours of progress. I think that is infinitely worse than what I had before. I don't know if in the 3D version of Final Fantasy III, if they fix this. The solution is simple. I just have a couple checkpoints, a couple save points. Maybe you can like re-up your HP, you know, or or have like a item shop or something. Anything. Having literally anything and to break up the pacing of the end boss rush and Crystal Tower. And yeah, because that was brutal. It was brutal. Now, I want you to let me know in the comments. Is it like that in the 3D version? Because I don't personally know, because I haven't personally played it. I've only played the original, and the original is hard as. Now we're getting to Final Fantasy IV, and this is a spoiler. You can just, I'll have all the Final Fantasies individually labeled so you can just skip to 5. The biggest flaw in Final Fantasy IV was Golbez's mind control. I think Golbez could have been a top tier villain. I think he could have been one of the greatest, up there with Kefka and Sephiroth. Kind of like tragic. Well, he is tragic in a way. And I'm speaking for myself, but I can't be the only one. The second that you learn that he's being mind controlled, it's like a rug pull, and the moral weight of everything he's done just kind of disappears, and his whole arc as a villain just starts crumbling around him. Like his choices aren't really his own. He was being controlled. So I don't know. I don't like that kind of stuff in games where it's like you're building up something and then it's like, oh, it was just a dream. You know what I mean? I just think it's BS and I don't like it. It feels cheap. The solution is to just let the villain be the villain, like Kefka in 6 was just a crazy, psychotic clown of chaos. Like if I could rewrite Golbez, I would make his fall kind of more of a choice, kind of this grief and envy and faith gone wrong. Mind control removes the consequence of his actions, and the choice kind of just builds up the myth of Golbez. Final Fantasy V. What's wrong with Final Fantasy V is the story. The story just feels like it feels like filler in between the jobs, because the job system was actually pretty awesome in Final Fantasy V. 5 has one of the best combat systems in the entire series. It's just fun, and it's pretty flexible, and it's pretty replayable. But the story, which does have its moments, it's moments of self-sacrifice, if you know what I'm talking about. But it just, on the whole, it kind of feels like a skeleton holding up the gameplay, in my opinion. It is lighthearted, but to a fault, where sometimes even the more emotional moments can land like jokes, which I don't like. A lot of characters exist to explain systems, not to really live in them. And the solution is, and you can kind of see a theme here, just real quick tangent, how there is a lot of refining and evolution. And that's what I love about Final Fantasy. Of course, these early games aren't going to be perfect. Of course, no game's going to be perfect, but I love to see the evolution of the series and the refinement of a lot of these systems and approaches to storytelling. But like I said, the Time Machine, kind of look at Final Fantasy IX, because I think 9 took that same tone, that cheerful and kind of classic, whimsical tone that Final Fantasy V was going for, and they gave it like an emotional gravity. And I really think 9 kind of was the fruition of the vision that Final Fantasy V was trying to go for, if that makes sense. On to Final Fantasy VI, and we are hitting the super duper golden age of the Final Fantasy series, and they ain't perfect. And I'm sure I'm going to get blowback on at least some of these, but I thought about them a lot, because it's actually pretty hard to pick, because these are some great games. But Final Fantasy VI, for me, the first half of 6 is pretty much perfect. But the second half, I think the pacing kind of drops off a lot of it. In the second half, in case you didn't play, I won't say what happens. I think the narrative tension that is building in the first half of the game more or less disappears. And I want to say more. And suddenly the urgency is gone. At least that's what I felt. It's a really cool design what they did in the second half of the game. It's a really cool narrative design and stuff. But for me, I think it kind of traded in emotional pacing for more player freedom, in a sense. If I could tweak one thing about 6, I just kind of tether each reunion in the second half of the game to a stronger emotional objective, like rebuilding faith or resisting despair. Yes, that sounds corny, but we all love this stuff. That's why we play JRPGs, right? The open world could still exist, but the heart wouldn't really kind of be all over the place. Final Fantasy VII. What's wrong with Final Fantasy VII, Shawnee boy? The materia. It's not the materia itself, but it's the end result of using materia. And first off, materia is one of the best systems ever made, but it's almost too, what's the word? Because anyone can equip anything, right? So a lot of the individuality disappears. Not all of it, because with limit breaks and stuff, you still feel a certain individuality, to use that word again, about each character, but it does kind of homogenize things a little bit. Guys, I'm grasping at straws here. Okay. And like certain people like Cloud, Barrett, and Tifa, I mean, if you really think about it, there is a time in the game where their battle roles, the roles in fights, kind of do blur a little bit. Their differences are definitely narrative, and they each have their own individual narrative path, but in gameplay terms, their roles do start to blur a little bit. I think, again, which is why it's my favorite Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy IX kind of fixed this by grounding the gameplay mechanics and personality. So Zidane's a thief, so he steals. And their attacks are very specific to them. And yes, there is some overlap with certain abilities or magic that you could use, but everyone feels like they have a very defined role in Final Fantasy IX. In 7, it's a little more fluid, if you know what I mean. Like 7's system would definitely shine a little brighter with some small personal restrictions, like things that make each materia feel a little bit different in each person's hand. So I always thought of Barrett as a tank, so he could have extra HP if you gave him the HP materia, you know what I mean? And then for Aerith, it wouldn't be as much, or, you know, and magic would work better on magic materia, would work better on the magic users. Stuff like that would help feel like each materia had its place with each person. But Final Fantasy VIII, I really didn't have to think about this very long. And it's a love-hate thing. I've talked about this before. It's drawing. My brain, the gambling, whatever gambling section of the brain is that loves, you know, gotcha and stuff like that, actually loves grinding, just draws for hours on end for each party member. But let's be real, drawing sucks. Objectively, it's a completely tedious, monotonous, borderline, if it wasn't tied so heavily to the junction system, borderline pointless system, because nobody is out here really using their magic spells. Like, you might use Cure every now and then, but everybody's just getting it to 99 just to junction it and inflate their stats, which is great because that's what I do. 8's idea of tying magic to your stats was pretty like revolutionary, only in the sense that it hadn't been really done. But obviously, I'm stating the most obvious stuff here. It needed way more balance and fine tuning. The solution for this is, and this was I kind of had to think about this a little bit, but I think if you made drawing more strategic and less mandatory, it would have been a really cool system. Like, if you could only draw very rare magic, or you could only draw from a certain boss or super rare monster, because the core idea of magic as a resource does work, in my opinion. It just needs to respect the player's time instead of just you're not being forced, but you are basically being forced. If you want to play the game optimally, you're being forced to 99 every magic spell, and that takes forever, and it sucks. 9, my baby, my favorite Final Fantasy. Look, 9 has all the heart in the world. I love it. It is almost perfect, but I feel like some of that love is very front-loaded, and it could be spread out a little bit more. Because obviously, Zidane, Garnet, Vivi, even Steiner, great stories, great personal arcs, but kind of, I want to say, a lot of the party, like half the party, they kind of just end up fading into the background. Like Freya is such a wasted character arc in my opinion. Amarant, like, so underutilized. Same for Quina or Kina, but I always pronounced it Quina. because you guys know I don't know how to pronounce anything. And half the time, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing things right. So Quina it is. Quina is a little bit of an oddball. And as much as an oddball as it is, I don't even know if Quina is a girl or a boy. Even Quina kind of does overshadow Freya and Amrit in some aspects. And another thing is, all these characters, they do start off strong, but they kind of fade. They peak and fade way too soon. Obviously, the solution, it's not rocket science. You just got to focus a little bit. 10 narrowed its story to this single pilgrimage, and it gave everyone a purpose, like an actual physical purpose in the world. 10, another one of my babies. Look, the flaw in 10 is the world. Let me elaborate. Breathe. Spear is breathtaking, obviously. Every region feels very sacred and alive. But you can't explore it. You can't explore it. Not really. It's a pilgrimage. It's almost an on-rails JRPG. Almost. The story's emotional power comes at the cost of discovery. And I think 12 fixed this pretty well. By kind of just trusting the player to just find the meaning and freedom. But the perfect middle ground for this, I think, would have been like the 7 remake, actually. Kind of like controlled zones with kind of player-driven pacing. If 10 had even one true overworld section, one area to just kind of wander off before the next temple, I think it would have made the game the best Final Fantasy game in the series. Final Fantasy 12. Let's get this out of the way. I love Ivalice. It's my favorite setting. It's stunning. It's a breathing, living political machine. But the story is so focused on like empire and strategy that a lot of the heart of the story, a lot of the heart of the characters is almost non-existent or just fades into the background. Like Bosch and Ash and Balthier and even Fran are really cool characters. They're really fascinating, but I don't know. Everybody just feels a little off kilter. Everybody feels a little disconnected from the emotional center of the story. It's a game that you admire, well, a game that I admire, but it's not one that makes me necessarily feel anything. I love a lot of the systems and the mechanics, but I'm not like getting goosebumps in Final Fantasy 12. You know what I mean? If 12 had a little bit of a tighter emotional spine, maybe a more like intimate bond between Ash and Bosch, or maybe a little more moral weight behind Balthier's charm, it could have been both intellectual, which is obviously what it was going for, and heartfelt at the same time. It was so serious. You know what I mean? Why so serious? All right. Final Fantasy 13, yes, we all have its problem. It's on rails. It's just a corridor simulator. And I agree. I do agree. That's been talked about to death. So I wanted to talk about something else that I really hated about it when I first played it. And that was just the total storytelling, gibberish, jargon, Lassie, Falsy, Seath. Look, it's really cool mythology, but they picked the most obnoxious, obtuse, stupid vocabulary, incomprehensible BS to name all this stuff. And I actually hate all the stupid terminology in this game. It makes you feel stupid and alienates you before it even begins to make you feel inspired or believe in the world. And like 13's world itself, like it's actually a very cool mythos and very cool lore, cocoon and I'm blanking on the other name, but the other planet. It's just the way it tells it. Look, people will accept complex lore if they feel connected to the people living it. Like 7 or 7 Remake or 16. Look, the solution to this is just quit trying to be too smart for your own good. Just drop the shtick. It's fine. It's fine. You can just say the evil one, the good guys, the possessed ones. It's fine. That works. All right, Final Fantasy 15. I have the same. I wanted to pick something else, but I have the same problem that all of you have. And that is the open world. Shocker, right? It's gorgeous. Technically, it's just hollow. It's a hollow shell of driving for miles and not really running into anything that matters. And I know I made a video before you, if you guys did watch the video, which doesn't have a lot of views anyways, of defending Final Fantasy 15. And I stand by that video defending 15 because for me, I just wanted to change my perspective and look at 15 in a positive light and try to see at least what they were trying to do. But objectively, the world sucks, right? And I think it's such a disservice to the actual main characters because I think they're really cool. And in my last video about the things that I would take from each Final Fantasy and put it into Final Fantasy 17, I chose the main cast, the kind of interactions and the banter and the camaraderie of the main cast of 15 because they are that incredible in my opinion. The brotherhood, the bond feels real, but it's the world around them that kind of just ends up feeling like a tech demo. But the fix is simple. You have to populate. Every road, ruin, or outpost should have some kind of story. And if it does in 15, I must have missed it because I don't see any like real strong environmental storytelling for 95% of the open world. It's just savanna or forest or grass or whatever. The exploration feels like somebody forced them to make it an open world game, which I'm trying to think, but I'm almost positive that is the case. So yeah, 15 definitely nailed the feeling of friendship, but it didn't nail the world around it. And for 16, it is a common complaint among us older Final Fantasy fans, and that is the combat forsaking kind of its roots in favor of more Devil May Cry action combat. And actually, you know, maybe I do like 16 a little more than I realized because this one was actually kind of hard because I was like, man, if that's really the only thing that really pops off the page to me, I guess it's not that bad, right? Yeah, the combat actually is really incredible for what it is. It just feels like a completely different series. It really does. And the party freedom's gone. It's just Clive fighting, you fighting as Clive, which is cool. But the experience kind of, it feels more like a power fantasy than a familial Final Fantasy game. I think the lesson isn't to go backwards necessarily. I think it's to merge this kind of modern, fast-paced intensity with Final Fantasy's spirit of Final Fantasy's past. Like, I like Expedition 33's kind of take on making battle a little bit more interactive, a little bit more cinematic and fun, just like how this combat feels very cinematic. It just feels like a different series. So every Final Fantasy, as you can see, has a flaw. Some are mechanical, some are a little more emotional, some are just the primordial ooze coming up out of the ocean, and that's just the way it is. It hasn't had time to evolve yet. Let me know if you guys agree in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more JRPG. Lately, it's been basically exclusively Final Fantasy stuff, but we all love Final Fantasy, so whatever. Have an amazing day and God bless.